So if you look back over the last decade, we have watched literally billions of dollars just vanish into thin air.
Oh, yeah. Billions. Easily.
And it's not, well, it's not through bank robberies or, sophisticated corporate espionage in the traditional sense.
Right. No one is tunneling into a vault.
Exactly. It's happening through exploited smart contracts, compromised cryptographic keys, and honestly, just spear phishing attacks targeting really exhausted developers.
Which is, I mean, that's the reality of the industry right now.
Yeah, because the crypto space has operated for a long time on this cypherpunk ethos of code is law, right?
Yes.
But we are increasingly seeing that when the code has a typo, the law is completely unforgiving to the user. Like your money is just gone.
It's an environment where the attack surface is completely asymmetrical.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. An attacker, they only need to be right once.
Right.
They just need to find a single zero-day exploit or, find a single employee who's willing to click on a malicious PDF file.
It's just one weak link.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the defender, they have to be right 100% of the time across every single layer of their architecture.
Which is, that's incredibly daunting. And that asymmetry is exactly why we're doing this deep dive with you today.
I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, because we are looking at how one specific jurisdiction is engineering this legal and technical fortress to stop those attackers.
The Dubai Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority.
Right, VARA. Specifically, we're unpacking their technology and information rulebook.
Which is a fascinating piece of regulation.
It really is. It's basically the blueprint for how Dubai is trying to definitively tame the Wild West of digital assets. So if you're listening, I want you to think of VARA as this ultra-strict building inspector for a futuristic digital city.
I like that analogy.
Thanks. Because before a crypto business can open its doors to the public, it has to pass this incredibly rigorous set of technical codes.
Yeah, and to be clear, to operate a virtual asset service provider, or a VASP, as they call it under VAO.
And that could be an exchange, a custodian, a broker, right.
Exactly, any of those. You are required to pass this specific tech rulebook. And we are talking about the raw machinery of a crypto business here.
Right, the plumbing.
Yes, the plumbing.
Yeah.
This isn't about marketing rules or financial capital requirements. VARA is totally separate rule books for those things.
Right. This is the technology and information module.
Purely cybersecurity, operational resilience, and cryptography.
Which is fascinating because normally regulators, they stay out of the server room.
They really do. Usually it's just about financial outcomes.
Yeah, they tell you what your capital reserves need to be and not how to configure your developer workstation.
Right. But VAR is taking a fundamentally different approach. They mandate what they call a defense-in-depth strategy.
Defense-in-depth.
Yes, and they require it to be proportionate to the scale of the business.
Right. So the larger your trading volume or the more complex your architecture, the more rigorous that defense has to be.
Absolutely.
Now, defense-in-depth, that term gets thrown around a lot in cybersecurity marketing materials.
Oh, constantly. It's a massive buzzword.
Yeah, and often it's just used to justify, like, buying 5 different software subscriptions.
Pretty much.
But in the context of a highly targeted crypto exchange, how should we visualize this? Because the old analogy of a castle with a moat doesn't really apply anymore, right? Especially when your business is globally distributed in the cloud.
The castle analogy is completely outdated. You're absolutely right. It implies this hardened perimeter and a soft interior.
Like an egg.
Right. Once you cross the moat, you just have the run of the place.
Yeah.
But for a modern VASP, defense in depth is much more like, think of the airlock system on a deep space vessel.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right. Breaching the external web application firewall shouldn't give an attacker access to the internal trading engine.
Right.
And breaching the trading engine certainly shouldn't give them access to the cryptographic keys. Every door an attacker breaks through should simply lock them into a smaller, heavily monitored, totally isolated room.
So you're basically engineering the system, assuming the perimeter will be breached.
You have to assume it, yes.
Okay, let's unpack this. So if a low-level customer service representative gets their account compromised via, like, a SIM swap attack.
Which happens all the time.
Right. So the blast radius of that is mathematically contained. That compromised account doesn't have the permissions or even the network routing to see the server where the wallet infrastructure lives.
Exactly. The airlock seals.
Yeah.
And VRI lists this massive set of minimum criteria for the cybersecurity policy to ensure that happens.
What kind of criteria?
Well, it covers the usual suspects, access controls, capacity planning, but it extends deeply into the physical realm, too.
Which is wild because physical security for digital assets always sounds like an oxymoron to me.
It does, but it's a massive vulnerability.
How so?
Well, if you are a custodian holding hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin, your cold storage, the offline servers that actually generate and hold the keys,
Right.
they cannot just be sitting in a standard office server rack.
Oh, wow.
We are
Okay.
talking about implementing Faraday cages.
To block signals.
Yes, to prevent electromagnetic interception. We're talking biometric access controls that require multiple executives to physically be present in the room,
Wait, really? Like in the movies?
just like the movies.
Yeah.
And even things like seismic sensors on the vault walls in case someone tries to drill
Yeah.
through. VAR requires your policy to account for all of this physical security.
Since it's intense. But even with all that internal and physical architecture, one of the rules that really stood out to me was actually external.
The threat sharing.
Yes. VIR requires VASPs to share cyber threat intelligence with other VASPs. Like, if it's in the best interest of the overall market to enhance operational resilience, you actually have to warn your rivals.
It's an incredibly pragmatic requirement, honestly, because adversaries, they share tactics.
That's true.
There are entire dark web marketplaces dedicated to sharing zero-day exploits and, phishing templates tailored for specific crypto exchanges.
Wow.
So if the attackers are collaborating, the defenders absolutely cannot operate in silos.
Okay, I get the theory behind that, but I want to push back on the reality of it.
Sure.
Because these exchanges, they are locked in this fiercely competitive zero-sum battle for retail and institutional liquidity.
Right, absolutely. It's cutthroat.
Right. So if an exchange spends millions of dollars on this elite internal threat intelligence team, and they discover a highly sophisticated novel attack vector targeting a specific cloud configuration,
Yeah.
isn't there a huge incentive to just quietly patch their own systems and let their competitors take the hit?
Well,
I mean, a competitor getting hacked usually drives users to the safer exchange, doesn't it?
in the short term, maybe. But the systemic risk in crypto changes the calculus entirely.
How so?
If a major exchange gets compromised, it doesn't just hurt that one exchange. It triggers a massive loss of confidence across the entire asset class.
Oh, like a contagion effect.
Exactly. We saw this with Mt. Gox back in the day. We saw with FTX.
Yeah.
When a giant falls, liquidity dries up globally.
Regulators step in.
Regulators crack down universally, and token prices just plummet. So a hack on your competitor actually directly damages your own balance sheet.
Ah, I see. It's the ultimate prisoner's dilemma. And VARA is essentially forcing cooperation. Like, hey guys, there's a specific zero-day exploit targeting this type of server configuration. Patch your systems.
Exactly. Though they do provide a caveat.
What's that?
You don't have to share anything that exposes confidential client data or increases the risk to your own firm.
Okay, that makes sense.
You share the threat signatures, the IP addresses of the attackers,
Yeah.
the methodology. You're not sharing your proprietary data.
Got it. Now, to orchestrate this entire defense apparatus, VARA demands the appointment of a Chief Information Security Officer, right?
Yep.
CS.
A dedicated CSO is mandatory.
And here's another area where I look at the rules and I wonder if it's adding, unnecessary bureaucratic bloat to these agile tech startups.
It's the common complaint.
Right, because the rule book explicitly states the CISO cannot be the same person as the compliance officer, the CO.
Correct. Total separation.
But for a leaner startup trying to get off the ground, why force them to hire two expensive, distinct C-suite executives? Wouldn't one, like chief risk officer, handle both the regulatory filings and the firewall rules?
It's a fair question, and it is a tension every startup feels when they're budgeting. But combining those roles creates a massive structural conflict of interest.
A conflict of interest? How?
Well, to understand why, we really have to look at historical failures in corporate governance within this industry. Let's do a brief postmortem of the FTX collapse.
Okay, let's go there.
One of the glaring issues uncovered during their bankruptcy proceedings was the complete lack of distinct technical oversight separated from the executive suite.
Right, it was all just a tight inner circle.
Exactly. There was no independent voice whose sole job was to say, no, this technical architecture is fundamentally unsafe.
So the compliance metric for success is regulatory adherence. A compliance officer is looking at anti-money laundering laws, combating the financing of terrorism, making sure the KYC documents are filed correctly.
Precisely. Their focus is on external legal reporting. But a CISO's focus must be purely on internal technical reality.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Imagine a scenario where a critical software vulnerability is discovered in the main trading engine. Patching it requires taking the exchange offline for 8 hours.
Which is an eternity in crypto.
It is. However, taking it offline means the compliance officer will miss a mandatory end-of-day regulatory reporting deadline, which carries a massive financial penalty.
Oh, wow. So if one person holds both titles, they are suddenly negotiating with themselves.
Exactly.
They might decide to delay the security patch to make the compliance deadline, leaving the exchange exposed to hackers for another 24 hours.
And that's exactly the conflict. You need the separation of powers. You need the CISO advocating fiercely, without compromise, for the technical security of the platform. It creates a natural, healthy tension with the compliance officer.
That makes total sense when you frame it like that. Interestingly, though, VI does allow the CISO to also act as the data protection officer, the DPO.
They do, yes.
Which makes sense because protecting user privacy and securing the database from external breaches are highly aligned objectives.
You really can't have privacy without security.
Exactly. So, okay, we have the governance structure, we have the CISO installed, the airlocks are built,
Yeah.
but the entire purpose of this fortress is to protect the actual assets.
The keys to the kingdom.
Right. And in crypto, the assets aren't files in a database, they are cryptographic keys.
This is the core of the technical challenge. Whoever controls the private keys controls the underlying assets on the blockchain.
It's that simple.
It really is. And VR's mandate here is absolute. There can be no single point of failure in accessing or knowing about virtual assets.
Okay, so let's talk about how you actually engineer a system with no single point of failure. Because in the legacy banking system, if a rogue employee wires $50 million out of the bank calls the clearinghouse,
Right.
they call the Federal Reserve, and they just reverse the transaction. The database is updated.
It's reversible.
But in crypto, once the transaction is cryptographically signed and confirmed on the blockchain, it is immutable. The money's gone.
Which is exactly why the authorization to sign that transaction cannot reside with one person, or even one machine.
So what's the solution?
VRA specifically requires what are called M of N signature standards.
Often known as multi-sig, right?
Yes, multi-sig, for all high-value operations.
For you listening who might be building in this space or evaluating these systems, let's break down the mechanics of M of N. We hear the term constantly, but how does it function as a security primitive?
Sure. So N represents the total number of authorized key shards, or signers, in existence for a specific wallet.
Okay.
And M represents the minimum threshold of those shards required to cryptographically execute a transaction.
Give me an example.
So in a 3 of 5 multi-sig arrangement, you have 5 potential keys. You might give one to the CEO, one to the CISO, one to a trusted third-party custodian.
That's 3.
One is locked in a physical vault,
Yep.
and one is held by the lead engineer.
Okay, so 5 keys total.
Right. To move funds, any 3 of those entities must independently sign the transaction.
It's like launching a nuclear submarine. You need 2 keys turned simultaneously at opposite ends of the room.
That's a perfect analogy, yes.
To illustrate why this is so critical, we just have to look at the Ronin bridge hack back in 2022.
Oh, a classic example.
It was one of the largest DeFi exploits in history, costing over $600 million.
Massive.
And Sky Mavis, the company behind the Axie Infinity game, they were using a multi-sig setup. They had 9 validator nodes, and they needed 5 signatures to approve a withdrawal, a 5 of 9 system.
On paper, that sounds incredibly robust.
But the vulnerability was in how those keys were distributed, wasn't it?
Yep.
Because Sky Mavis controlled 4 of the 9 keys internally, and the attacker managed to spearfish a Sky Mavis engineer.
Famously, with a fake job offer sent over LinkedIn.
Right, a malicious PDF. The malware compromised the company's internal systems, giving the attacker access to all 4 of those internal keys.
So they only needed one more.
Exactly. And because of a previous poorly documented technical arrangement, Sky Mavis's systems still had lingering authorization to use a 5th key held by the Axie DAO.
Which is just a catastrophic oversight.
Totally. The attacker leveraged that back-end access, got the 5th signature, and just drained the bridge.
And that case study is exactly what Verrier's rulebook is designed to prevent.
Right.
It's not just about having a multi-sig protocol in the software. It's about the geographic, physical, and organizational distribution of those key holders.
Because if they're all in the same office.
Right. If 4 of your keys can be compromised by a single infected PDF on a single company network, You don't actually have a 5 of 9 system. You effectively have a single point of failure.
Which brings us to how these keys are generated and stored in the first place. VRA expects VASPs to use hardware security modules, or HSMs.
Yes, HSMs are mandatory where possible.
Explain what those are for the listener.
They are tamper-resistant physical devices that generate keys in a completely isolated environment. You can't just run a Python script on your MacBook to generate the wallet seed phrase for the company's cold storage.
Right, because the MacBook could be compromised.
Exactly. The HSM does the cryptography entirely within its own secure chip.
And you also have to back up that seed phrase, right? The master recovery password.
Yes. If the HSM is destroyed in a fire, you need the seed phrase to recover the funds.
But VARA dictates that this seed phrase must be split or controlled so that no single employee has access to the entire backup.
Correct. And this is where we get into some really fascinating cryptography, like Shamir's secret sharing.
Yeah, I love this part, because it's not just taking a piece of paper with 24 words on it and cutting it into 3 pieces with scissors.
No, definitely not. Because if you just cut the paper into 3 pieces and I steal 1 piece.
You now know 8 of the 24 words.
Exactly. I have reduced the cryptographic entropy. It makes it significantly easier for me to brute force the rest of the phrase using a computer.
So how does Shamir's secret sharing fix that?
It uses polynomial interpolation.
Okay, we are getting into the weeds, but this is the exact level of engineering VARI is demanding. Break it down for us.
I'll keep it brief. Basically, it plots a mathematical curve.
Mhm.
To know the curve, which represents the secret key, you need a specific number of points on that curve.
Like coordinates.
Right.
Right.
You can distribute dozens of these points to different people. If the threshold is set to 3, any 3 people combining their points can perfectly reconstruct the curve, and therefore the key.
Okay.
But here's the magic. If a hacker only compromises 2 people, they have 2 points. In mathematics, an infinite number of curves can pass through 2 points.
Oh, wow.
Therefore, having 2 points gives the hacker absolutely zero partial information about the final secret. It is mathematically secure.
It's brilliant. It really is. But let's bring it back to the human element, because the tech industry has notoriously high turnover.
Very true.
What happens when the lead developer, who holds one of these mathematically secure key shards, gets a better offer at a rival firm and just quits on a Tuesday?
VA's key holder lifecycle requirements address this directly.
Okay.
There must be formal procedures to instantly revoke access. And if there is even a suspected compromise of a key, say that developer lost their laptop in an airport 2 days before they quit.
Right. You can't take chances.
Exactly. The VASP must have a rapid key rotation capability.
Meaning they just change the locks.
Precisely. They instantly generate a new underlying master key, move the funds to the new architecture, and distribute new shards, rendering the old ones mathematically useless.
Wow. Okay, so you can build the most secure key architecture in the world, but if the software those keys interact with is flawed, you're still doomed.
Completely doomed.
And this is where I think VAA introduces the most profound culture clash for crypto-native developers.
You're talking about smart contract security.
Yes, because it is a complete paradigm shift. The original ethos of crypto development was deeply intertwined with Silicon Valley's move fast and break things motto.
Right. You write a smart contract, you deploy it to Ethereum, and if there's a bug, you deploy a patch.
But in crypto, a bug isn't a glitchy user interface. A bug in a smart contract is literally a digital vault door swinging wide open.
Yes. We saw this with the DAO hack way back in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
A simple reentrancy vulnerability allowed an attacker to drain millions of Ether.
It's fascinating that VARI is intentionally slowing down the deployment pipeline to kill that move fast mentality. They don't just trust the code.
No, they require rigorous verification before a smart contract is ever pushed to a live network. VASPs are expected to perform independent third-party audits.
So you can't just rely on an internal code review by the same team that wrote the software.
Definitely not. You have to hire an external firm. And the rulebook specifically mentions utilizing static and dynamic code analysis.
Let's explain how those two analyses actually work in practice, because they catch entirely different categories of vulnerabilities. Let's start with static analysis.
Sure. So static analysis examines the code without executing it. It parses the source code, say, written in Solidity, and it builds what's called an abstract syntax tree.
Okay, a map of the code.
Right. It analyzes the flow of data and control to look for known vulnerability patterns. It's checking the architecture of the code against a massive database of historical exploits.
So it's looking for the mistakes people have made before.
Exactly. It can mathematically prove if a specific variable can ever be manipulated into an unsafe state, like an integer underflow or those reentrancy loops you mentioned.
It's kind of like a structural engineer looking at the blueprints of a bridge and calculating that the steel beams are too thin to support the expected weight before the bridge is even built?
That is exactly what it is.
Okay, so that's static. What about dynamic analysis?
Dynamic analysis, on the other hand, is executing the code in a sandbox or a testnet environment.
Actually running it.
Yes. And this often involves a technique called fuzzing.
Fuzzing?
Yeah. Use automated tools to throw massive amounts of random, invalid, or just totally unexpected data at the compiled bytecode of the smart contract
Just to see what happens.
to see if you can force it into an edge case failure.
So you're basically just hitting the smart contract with a hammer from 1,000 different angles to see what breaks.
That's a great way to put it. And only after it survives the internal review, the external audit, the static analysis, and the dynamic fuzzing can it finally be deployed.
It really elevates crypto development to the same level of safety critical engineering we see in, like, aviation software.
Because the financial stakes are comparable.
Truly. But as you know, audited code still lives on servers,
Uh-huh.
and servers are managed and attacked by humans.
The infrastructure layer.
Right. A smart contract might be perfectly secure, but if the web interface used to access it is compromised, the user still loses everything.
Exactly.
So how do you prove this audited infrastructure actually survives a real-world siege?
That brings us to stress testing the fortress. VRA requires the standard baseline, of course, annual penetration testing, quarterly vulnerability assessments, continuous automated scanning.
Table stakes.
That's right. But the crown jewel of their testing mandate is what's called threat-led penetration testing.
TLPT.
Yes. This is where the regulator stops taking your word for it.
Mm-hmm.
VRA can formally notify a VASP that they are required to undergo a highly advanced intelligence-led red team test.
Here's where it gets really interesting. For those unfamiliar with the term, a red team isn't an automated software scanner looking for out-of-date plugins.
No, not at all.
The VASP has to hire a team of elite ethical hackers, often former intelligence agency or military cyber operators.
The best of the best.
And their mandate isn't to look for bugs. Their mandate is to achieve a specific objective, like steal the client database or gain unauthorized access to the hot wallet infrastructure.
Right. They attack the live production systems of the company. They mimic the exact tactics of advanced persistent threat groups, like Lazarus.
They will map the organization's footprint. They'll try to spearfish executives.
They'll try to bypass multi-factor authentication using session hijacking.
They'll look for misconfigured AWS buckets.
It is a live-fire exercise.
But wait, attacking a live financial exchange sounds incredibly reckless. What if the red team accidentally drops a production database? Or triggers an automated failsafe that halts trading for millions of users?
That is the delicate tightrope of TLPT. The rulebook installs strict risk mitigation guardrails.
Okay, like what?
The red team must prove the attack path without executing the final destructive payload. They cannot extract, alter, or destroy actual client data or assets.
So they just proved they could have done it.
Yes, if they breach the core database, they take a screenshot of the directory structure to prove they have root access, and then they stop.
Okay.
The goal is to prove they could cause catastrophic damage, allowing the VASP to close the vulnerability before a real threat actor finds it.
But here's where the reality of modern cloud architecture complicates this rule immensely.
The supply chain.
Yeah. Very few crypto exchanges own their own physical servers anymore. They're built on Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure.
Right.
They use third-party custody solutions like Fireblocks. So if I'm a VASP and I'm ordered to conduct a TLTT, I can't just tell a red team to launch a denial of service attack or attempt to breach the hypervisor level of an AWS data center.
Amazon security teams will immediately shut that down.
Right. And I'd likely violate my terms of service.
VAR explicitly addresses this supply chain complexity. If a VASP relies on a third-party technology service provider, that provider may have to enter into contractual arrangements to be part of the TLPT.
Wait, so the VASP has to go to a massive multi-trillion-dollar cloud provider and say, hey, my Dubai regulator says my red team needs permission to attack your infrastructure because we host our platform there. Good luck getting AWS legal to sign off on that.
I know, it is a massive point of friction. However, VAA does provide a carve-out.
Okay, what is it?
The third-party provider can directly contract with the external tester, or they can provide evidence of their own equivalent independent red team testing.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Right. especially if participating directly would compromise other clients' data confidentiality or impact the wider market. It acknowledges the reality of shared cloud environments.
But it refuses to let the VASP use its stored in the cloud as a blanket excuse to avoid testing.
Exactly. It forces the VASP to take ownership of their vendor's security posture.
Which transitions us perfectly to the next critical vulnerability. You can audit the smart contracts, you can red team the servers, but your architecture is only as secure as the laptop of the developer writing the code.
The human element.
Yeah.
And specifically the highly distributed nature of the modern crypto workforce. These companies rarely operate out of a single office building anymore.
Right, they're solely remote.
You have developers in Lisbon, marketing in Singapore, and DevOps engineers in Buenos Aires, all connecting to the same core infrastructure from various local networks.
Securing that perimeter is a nightmare. A developer sitting in a coffee shop in Lisbon using public Wi-Fi. I mean, that is a massive attack vector.
Which is why the rulebook outlines specific developer workstation standards. Mandatory endpoint protection and network segmentation are table stakes.
Okay.
But the critical rule here is the strict prohibition of direct production access from standard developer workstations.
Let's walk through the mechanics of why that matters. Because if a developer uses the same laptop to browse Twitter, read personal email, and push code updates to the live trading engine, the risk of cross-contamination is immense.
Absolutely.
If they accidentally download malware from a phishing email, that malware now resides on a machine with direct cryptographic credentials to the production servers.
Exactly. The malware simply rides the developer's authenticated sessions straight into the core infrastructure.
Wow.
So VRI mandates a structural air gap or incredibly strict access management controls. A developer might have to log into a secure, heavily monitored virtual desktop infrastructure, a VDI.
Like a remote computer.
Yes. And that VDI has no internet access, and only from that environment can they access the production servers.
And securing those systems fundamentally comes down to protecting the data within them. The VARA rulebook explicitly ties technical security to data privacy laws.
Yes, the PDPL.
Right. VASPs must comply with the UAE's Federal Decree Law number 45 of 2021 on the protection of personal data.
The crucial aspect of the PDPL integration is its extraterritoriality.
Meaning it applies outside of Dubai.
Right. The VASP must comply with UAE data protection standards, regardless of where the data is actually stored globally. You cannot simply host your client database on servers in a jurisdiction with lax privacy laws to avoid compliance.
But I want to explore the technical friction of applying a data privacy law like the PDPL to a blockchain company.
Okay, let's do it.
Because privacy laws typically include the right to be forgotten, right? A user can demand that a company delete all their personal data. How on earth does a VASP comply with that when the very nature of a distributed ledger is that data is mathematically immutable? You cannot delete a transaction from the Bitcoin blockchain.
It's a great question. It forces VASPs to architect their data storage meticulously. A VASP cannot store personally identifiable information PII like names, addresses, or passport scans directly on the blockchain.
Okay, so where does it go?
They must store that data off-chain in traditional centralized databases. Those databases can be modified or deleted to comply with the right to be forgotten.
And the blockchain just has the transaction data.
Exactly. The blockchain only records the cryptographic hash of the transaction or a pseudonymized identifier. The VASP maintains the map between the off-chain human identity and the on-chain activity.
Ah, I see.
If the user exercises their right to be forgotten, the VASP just deletes the off-chain map. The transaction remains on the blockchain forever, but it is cryptographically orphaned from the human identity.
That is an elegant technical solution to a really complex legal problem. But when things go wrong, the legal problems escalate quickly. Which brings us to the 24-hour rule.
One of the most demanding standards in the entire framework.
Under Part 2, Section C, if there is a material cybersecurity event or a breach of personal data, the VASP has exactly 24 hours to notify VARA.
Just 24 hours.
I want to walk through a hypothetical timeline of a zero-day exploit for you listening, just to illustrate how insane a 24-hour window is in the real world of incident response.
Please do. It's intense.
Okay, hour 0. A sophisticated attacker detonates a malicious payload in the VASP's internal network.
Okay.
Hour 2. The automated security tools detect anomalous outbound traffic. However, in a system processing millions of transactions, the Security Operations Center analysts initially classify it as a false positive, because alert fatigue is real.
Very real. They get thousands of those a day.
Right. Hour 5. A senior engineer finally realizes the outbound traffic is actually an encrypted exfiltration of the client database. They immediately escalate to the CISO.
Panic starts to set in.
Exactly. Hour 8, it's the middle of the night, the war room is assembled, the team is desperately trying to identify the compromised server, sever its external connections, and stop the bleeding without crashing the entire trading platform.
Which is incredibly delicate work.
Hour 14. They finally contain the breach. Now the forensic analysis begins. What did the attackers take? Did they get just encrypted passwords? Or did they get plain text KYC documents? Did they access the hot wallets?
You're burning through the clock.
Right. Hour 20. The executive team and external legal counsel are panicked. They're trying to draft a coherent, legally accurate notification to the regulator while the tech team is still actively patching the vulnerability.
And then hour 24 arrives.
The notification must be submitted.
It is an incredibly demanding timeline. The standard in many other industries, like the GDPR in Europe, is usually 72 hours.
So why make it so brutally short?
Because of the velocity of contagion in the crypto market. VAR cannot afford to wait 3 days to find out a major exchange has been compromised.
Why not?
Because in 3 days, billions of dollars can be laundered through decentralized mixers, and the market panic can bankrupt interconnected counterparties before the regulator even knows what happened.
Oh, right.
VAR demands immediate visibility, even if the information is incomplete. They need to assess the systemic risk and potentially coordinate a wider market response.
They want to know the house is on fire while the fire department is still hooking up the hoses, not reading about it in the ashes 3 days later.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of internal threats, there is a specific rule regarding confidential information that targets the human element in a different way.
Yes, you are referring to Part 3. It explicitly states that VASPs and their staff shall not use or share confidential information for the purpose of trading virtual assets.
This is essentially the codification of strict anti-front-running rules.
Yes, it is.
Because insider trading is illegal in traditional finance, obviously. But in crypto, where assets trade 247, volatility is massive, and pseudo-anonymity is really easy to achieve. The temptation is immense.
Unbelievably tempting.
Right. If I'm a database engineer at a VASP, and I can see a pending order from a massive institutional client to market buy $50 million of a low-cap token, I know that buy order will spike the price.
The temptation is to pull out your personal phone, buy the token on a decentralized exchange, wait for your employer's client to execute their massive trade, and then sell your position into the artificially inflated price.
Easy money. But VAER is making it a foundational technology rule that the VASP's data architecture and staff policies must actively prevent this abuse of client data.
The engineer shouldn't even have the permissions to view the real-time institutional order book in plain text if it's not strictly necessary for their job function.
Which perfectly bridges the gap to our final core topic, consumer protection. How does this massive back-end technical apparatus actually protect the retail investor who just downloaded the app to buy some Ethereum?
It starts with the invisible hands guiding the entire market. Algorithms.
Right. If an exchange uses algorithms, which they all do, for automated trading, matching buyers and sellers, executing liquidations, the board of directors must have robust oversight over their design.
And they're specifically required to check for actual or potential biases in the logic.
We usually hear about algorithmic bias in the context of like social media feeds or AI hiring tools. But in a financial matching engine, bias is catastrophic.
It destroys market integrity.
Give me an example of how a matching algorithm could be biased against a retail user.
Okay, imagine a period of extreme market volatility, a flash crash. The network is highly congested.
Everyone's panicking.
Right. A bias matching algorithm might be poorly coded or intentionally designed to systematically prioritize trade execution for high-frequency algorithmic trading firms, the market makers, over the market sell orders of regular retail clients.
Oh, wow.
So the retail client's order is delayed by just 500 milliseconds. But in a flash crash, that delay means their order executes at a significantly lower price, while the institutional client gets out safely.
That's horrifying. Or consider a liquidation algorithm. If a user is trading with leverage and the price drops below their collateral value, the algorithm automatically sells their assets.
Validates them.
Right.
Whoa.
If that algorithm has flawed logic, a brief, anomalous price wick on a single trading pair could trigger a cascade of unfair liquidations, wiping out hundreds of users before the price instantly recovers.
This could happen.
VARA is demanding meticulous documentation of how these algorithms are designed, tested, and supervised. Basically, the algorithm did it is completely dead as a legal defense in Dubai.
And continuing with how technology is leveraged for oversight, VASPs must implement distributed ledger tracing software.
Yes.
They must actively screen incoming and outgoing transactions and wallet addresses.
This role represents one of the most profound ironies of the entire cryptocurrency experiment to me.
How so?
Well, Bitcoin was championed by cypherpunks as untraceable, anonymous digital cash. But a blockchain is, by definition, a public, globally distributed, immutable ledger. VARA is forcing VASPs to weaponize that total transparency for regulatory compliance.
The tracing software tools built by companies like Chainalysis or Elliptic uses advanced heuristics and clustering algorithms.
What does that mean in practice?
They map the millions of anonymous addresses on the blockchain to known entities.
So if a North Korean state-sponsored hacking group steals funds from a decentralized finance protocol,
Yep.
and they attempt to launder that crypto through a mixer like Tornado Cash, and then send it to a VARA licensed exchange in Dubai to cash out into fiat currency.
The tracing software analyzes the transaction history of the incoming deposit. It flags that the crypto is mathematically tainted by its interaction with the sanction mixer or the known hacker address.
And then what?
The VASP's automated systems instantly freeze the deposit and alert the compliance team to file a suspicious activity report. The underlying technology of crypto is being used to track bad actors in real time, far more effectively than you could ever track physical cash in suitcases.
But VAR also requires controls at the point of withdrawal to protect the consumer from their own compromised accounts.
Yes.
Schedule 1 outlines strict withdrawal controls, including tiered limits, cooling periods, and address whitelisting.
Address whitelisting is perhaps the most effective consumer protection tool against account takeovers.
Explain how it works.
It means you can only withdraw crypto to an external wallet address that you have previously pre-approved on your account.
Okay, but I want to discuss why VAR specifically mandates multi-factor authentication, not just for logging in, but specifically for the action of adding a new address to that whitelist.
Because of session hijacking.
Right, because a tech-literate user might say, I already used MFA to log in, why do I have to do it again to change my withdrawal address?
Right, but if an attacker uses malware to steal the session cookie from your browser after you have already logged in using MFA.
They bypass the login screen entirely.
Exactly. They are already inside your account. If the VASP doesn't require a second out-of-band authentication, like an authenticator app code or a biometric prompt on your phone, at the exact moment the attacker tries to add their own wallet address to your whitelist,
They will drain your account.
they will drain it instantly by forcing MFA at the exact friction point of an address change and then instituting a 24-hour cooling period where no funds can be sent to that new address.
VARA is effectively installing a timed deadbolt on the inside of the vault.
Yes. Even if the thief steals your key and gets inside, they have to wait 24 hours to take the money out. It gives you time to realize you've been compromised and freeze the account.
It's an intentional sacrifice of the
Because if an exchange holds $1 billion of client Bitcoin, and all of it is sitting in a single hot wallet, a wallet connected to the internet to facilitate instant trading, it's a single, massively lucrative target.
honeypot.
It's a digital honeypot that will attract every state-sponsored hacking group on the planet.
So VASPs must heavily utilize cold storage, offline servers. But VAR takes it a step further. They mandate the physical distribution of the servers, storing information through which wallets can be accessed.
You cannot have all your cold storage devices or all your backup seed phrases stored in a single physical bank vault.
Why not?
If there is a fire, a natural disaster, or a coordinated physical heist at that location, the company loses its ability to access client funds.
Oh, right.
The infrastructure must be geographically distributed. If a data center in one city goes offline, the VASP must be able to securely reconstruct the keys and access the funds from a completely separate geographic location. It ensures true operational resilience.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today, from defense in depth and air-gapped workstations to the mathematics of Shamir's secret sharing, the friction of smart contract static analysis, the intensity of threat-led penetration testing,
The brutal 24-hour breach notification window.
and the weaponization of blockchain transparency for compliance. It is a phenomenal, exhausting amount of regulation focused entirely on the technological plumbing of these companies.
It really is.
So let's bring it all together for the listener. What is the takeaway here? If you are a founder looking to set up shop in Dubai, you have to completely recalibrate your business model.
You really do.
The compliance costs to hire a CISO, a DPO, independent smart contract auditors, and external red teams. They are immense. You cannot launch a lean two-person startup and hold client funds under this regime.
And if you're a developer, the culture shock will be real. You are entering an environment governed by banking-grade security life cycles.
Exactly.
You will be operating in VDIs, your code will be delayed by external audits, and your algorithms will be scrutinized for bias by the board of directors.
But if you are an investor or a retail user, this rulebook should frankly give you a massive sense of relief.
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing that your funds can't be drained due to a single point of failure in a multi-sig setup, knowing that your account is protected against session hijacking by mandatory address whitelisting, it makes this jurisdiction look incredibly appealing compared to offshore, unregulated exchanges where a single developer holds the master key on a sticky note.
It forces the industry to mature. It brings verifiable trust to a technology that was originally designed to be trustless.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We started this deep dive talking about the cypherpunk roots of cryptocurrency.
Right.
The whole point of Bitcoin in 2009 was decentralization. No central points of failure, no middlemen, no central authority dictating who could transact. But as we see with Van Urey's technology rulebook, the path to mainstream legal global adoption requires the exact opposite.
It really does.
To make this technology safe for the masses, we are forcing companies to deeply centralize their security protocols, build massive corporate governance hierarchies, rely on third-party auditors, and submit to incredibly strict state oversight.
The irony is striking.
It is the ultimate paradox of the digital asset age. To make decentralized money safe, we are deeply centralizing its administration. Are we witnessing the necessary evolution of a chaotic technology, or is crypto simply becoming the heavily regulated traditional banking system it originally set out to replace?
Something to think about.
Truly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the VAR technology rulebook. Stay curious. Instantaneous, frictionless nature of crypto in exchange for institutional-grade security.
It absolutely is.
And finally, we have to talk about concentration risk. VRA does not want all client funds sitting in one digital basket.
No.